Maxine Waters thought she could intimidate a combat veteran. She forgot Tulsi Gabbard has access to everything. The 86-year-old California congresswoman had ruled her district like a queen for 40 years, untouchable and unchallenged. But when she called the director of national intelligence a Russian puppet and traitor on live television, she made the biggest mistake of her political career. Tulsi Gabbard's response was deadly calm. Congresswoman Waters, let's discuss your $4.5 million mansion and how you afforded it on a congressional salary. What happened next exposed 40 years of corruption, violence, and treason that will end Maxine Waters forever. This decorated Iraq War veteran is about to expose everything with classified intelligence that will shock you to your core. Maxine Waters had terrorized American politics for 4 decades with her race, baiting, riot, inciting, and corruption, enabling reign. She thought her position on the House Financial Services Committee made her untouchable. She thought wrong. When you attack someone who controls America's entire intelligence apparatus, someone who actually kept their oath to defend the Constitution, you better be ready for the truth to come out. All of it. This is bigger than one united bank. This is bigger than the millions in mysterious wealth. This is about a member of Congress who sold out her country, incited violence that killed Americans, and facilitated crimes against children. Today, justice comes for Maxine Waters. It was supposed to be a routine Tuesday morning appearance on Morning Joe. The topic was national security and intelligence community reforms, with 2 of the most prominent women in American politics scheduled, for what producers expected would be a respectful policy discussion. Maxine Waters had specifically requested this joint appearance with Tulsi Gabbard. For weeks, she had been watching the new director of national intelligence with growing alarm. Not because of any policy disagreements, but because Gabbard represented something Waters had spent 40 years ensuring never existed in Washington: authentic accountability backed by real power. Waters had survived every scandal, every ethics investigation, and every attempt to expose her corruption. The media protected her. The Democratic establishment protected her. The race card protected her. For 4 decades, she had wielded these shields like weapons, destroying anyone who dared challenge her empire of corruption. But Tulsi Gabbard was different, a combat veteran who had actually served in Iraq, who had seen friends die for their country, and who took her oath seriously. And now she commanded the most powerful intelligence apparatus in human history. The setup seemed perfect from Waters' perspective. A live discussion about intelligence oversight where she could paint Gabbard as compromised, as a Russian asset, and as a danger to democracy, the same playbook that had destroyed so many others. Host Joe Scarborough opened with standard questions about intelligence priorities and congressional oversight. For the first 10 minutes, everything proceeded normally. Waters spoke about the importance of community representation in intelligence work. Gabbard discussed modernizing intelligence capabilities while protecting civil liberties. Then Waters made her move. "Joe, I think we need to address the elephant in the room," Waters said, turning to face the camera with the practiced indignation that had served her for 40 years. "We have a director of national intelligence who many believe is compromised by foreign powers." The studio temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Scarborough and co-host Mika Brzezinski exchanged worried glances. This was not in the script, but Waters was just warming up. Tulsi Gabbard is Putin's favorite American politician. She is a Russian puppet, a traitor to this country, and frankly, she is also a white supremacist sympathizer who has no business accessing our nation's secrets. The accusations hung in the air like poison gas. Russian puppet, traitor, white supremacist, sympathizer. Waters had just deployed her entire arsenal of character assassination in a single sentence. For exactly 5 seconds, Tulsi Gabbard sat perfectly still. The silence was deafening. Every person watching could feel the tension building, like a thunderstorm about to break. When Tulsi finally spoke, her voice carried the controlled fury of someone who had faced actual enemies in actual combat. "Congresswoman Waters," she said, each word precise as a sniper bullet, "since you want to discuss foreign compromise and treason on national television, let us begin." She reached into her briefcase with deliberate precision, withdrawing a thick folder marked with official DNI classification stamps. "Let us discuss your $4.5 million mansion and how you afforded it, on a congressional salary." Waters' face twitched just for a moment, but everyone saw it. The predator had suddenly become prey. "Let us discuss One United Bank and the $12 million in taxpayer money you steered to your husband business interests." Tulsi opened the folder like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. "Let us discuss the riots you have incited that left Americans dead." Another folder appeared. "Let us discuss the foreign money flowing through your district." A third folder. "And let us discuss why multiple intelligence agencies have files on your activities dating back decades." The transformation was complete. Maxine Waters, who had entered the studio as the attacker, now sat frozen like a deer in headlights. She had just realized she was not facing another politician playing by Washington rules. She was facing a warrior with access to every secret she had ever tried to hide. "This is outrageous," Waters finally sputtered. "You cannot just make wild accusations." "I am not making accusations," Tulsi interrupted with military precision. "I am presenting evidence. As Director of National Intelligence, I have the authority to declassify any information I determine to be in the public interest. And exposing corruption in Congress is definitely in the public interest." She held up the first folder for the camera to see. Waters' Financial Crimes Classified Evidence. "Now," Tulsi said with deadly calm, "shall we start with how you really built your fortune, or would you prefer to retract your accusations and slink away while you still can?" Waters' mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. She had walked into an ambush, and there was no escape. "Let us start with One United Bank," Tulsi said, opening the first folder. "The American people deserve to know how their tax dollars ended up in your family pockets." The MSNBC studio had transformed from a news set into a courtroom where 40 years of corruption was about to be exposed. Tulsi opened her first classified folder with the methodical precision of someone who had planned every detail of this moment. "Congresswoman Waters," Tulsi began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had studied every document, "let us discuss how you turned the 2008 financial crisis into a personal enrichment scheme." She produced the first document, holding it up so the cameras could capture the official Treasury Department seals and classification markings. September 2008, the entire American financial system is collapsing. Millions of Americans are losing their homes. And what was Maxine Waters doing? Arranging a special meeting between Treasury officials and One United Bank, a bank where her husband was a board member and shareholder. Waters tried to interrupt. That meeting was for the National Bankers Association. "Stop lying," Tulsi cut her off with military authority. "I have the recordings." The word recordings hit Waters like a physical blow. Her eyes widened in panic. Tulsi produced audio equipment and placed it on the table. NSA intercepts of your phone calls arranging this meeting. Shall we listen?" Without waiting for a response, she pressed play. Waters' own voice filled the studio, crystal clear and undeniable. "Kevin, it is Maxine. I need that meeting with Treasury, ASAP. Sydney Bank is about to go under, and we will lose everything. Make sure it is just one united executives. I do not want any other banks muddying the waters." A male voice responded, "Congresswoman, that could look like a conflict of interest, given your husband." Waters' voice turned sharp. "I do not care how it looks. My family has $300,000 in that bank. If it fails, we are ruined. Make the meeting happen." The recording was devastating. Waters had not just arranged a meeting, she had specifically orchestrated it to save her family money. But that was just the beginning. Tulsi continued producing more documents. Financial records show that One United Bank received $12 million in TARP bailout funds after your intervention. Taxpayer money that was supposed to save the economy ended up saving your husband investment. She displayed Treasury Department analysis on the screen. One United was one of the worst-performing banks in America. It had been cited for unsafe banking practices. It had no business receiving federal funds, but it got $12 million because Maxine Waters made it happen. The evidence kept mounting. Here are SEC documents showing that your husband's shares in One United would have been worthless without that bailout. Instead, they retained their value, and he later sold them for a substantial profit. But Tulsi was just getting started. This was not an isolated incident. Our investigation found a pattern spanning 20 years. Every time a minority-owned bank needed something from the federal government, they knew who to call, and they knew they would have to pay. She produced more financial records. Between 2003 and 2023, your campaign and associated PACs received over $2.8 million from executives and board members of minority banks that received federal assistance after your intervention. That is legal campaign contributions, Waters protested weakly. Legal contributions that happen to come immediately before or after you help these banks get federal money, Tulsi replied. The pattern is undeniable. Pay-to-play corruption at its worst. Now let us discuss your real estate empire, Tulsi said, producing property records. You own a $4.5 million mansion outside your district. Multiple properties worth over $6 million total. Your husband has his own portfolio worth millions more. She leaned forward. Congresswoman Waters, you have been in Congress since 1991. Your salary is $174,000 per year. Your husband is a former professional football player and car salesman. Where did the money come from? Waters was visibly sweating now. My husband had successful business investments. I have his tax returns. Tulsi interrupted, producing IRS documents. His declared income never exceeded $200,000 per year. Yet somehow you accumulated over $10 million in assets. The financial forensics were devastating and undeniable. Treasury analysis shows systematic patterns of money flowing from banks you helped through various LLCs and trusts, eventually ending up financing your real estate purchases. This is a witch hunt, Waters finally exploded. You're targeting me because I am a strong black woman who, I am targeting you because you are a corrupt politician who stole taxpayer money, Tulsi replied with ice-cold precision. Your race and gender are irrelevant. Your crimes are not. She produced one final document from the financial crimes folder. This is a Criminal Investigation Division report recommending prosecution for bank fraud, conspiracy, and violation of federal conflict of interest laws. It was buried in 2010 because of your political connections, but I am declassifying it today. The evidence was overwhelming. Phone recordings, financial records, property documents, tax returns, all painting a picture of systematic corruption spanning decades. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi said, closing the first folder, you turned the financial crisis into a personal ATM. While Americans lost their homes, you enriched yourself. While banks failed and families were destroyed, you made millions. And she reached for the second folder, this one marked with FBI and DHS seals. Now, let us discuss how many Americans died because of the violence you have incited over the years. If the financial corruption evidence had left Maxine Waters shaken, what came next would destroy her completely. Tulsi opened the second folder, revealing FBI reports, DHS assessments, and crime scene photographs that painted a horrific picture of violence and death. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi began, her voice heavy with the weight of American lives lost. You have spent 30 years inciting violence for political gain. Today, we are going to count the bodies. She produced a photograph of Los Angeles burning, smoke rising from countless fires, bodies in the streets. The Rodney King riots. 53 Americans dead, over 2,000 injured, $1 billion in property damage. And what did Maxine Waters do? You poured gasoline on the fire. Tulsi pressed play on another audio recording, this one from a press conference. Waters' voice filled the studio. I call it a rebellion, not a riot. When people are angry and frustrated, they have to express that anger. I am not asking people to go inside and be peaceful. The violence is understandable, if not acceptable. The recording continued with Waters actively discouraging peace. There are those who would like for me to tell people to go inside, to be peaceful, that they have to accept the verdict. I am not going to do that. You legitimized violence, Tulsi said, producing FBI crime statistics. You told rioters their actions were understandable. You gave them permission to destroy Los Angeles. She displayed photographs of the victims. 53 Americans dead. Congresswoman, here are their faces. Dwight Taylor, age 42, shot while trying to protect his store. Eduardo Vela, age 33, beaten to death by a mob. Imran Sheikh, age 23, burned alive in his family business. Each photograph was a dagger to Waters' political mythology. Real people, real families destroyed, but you learned nothing from their deaths, Tulsi continued. Fast forward to 2018, you told supporters to confront Trump administration officials, to create crowds and push back on them. Your exact words, you tell them they are not welcome anymore, anywhere. Another recording played, this time from a rally. Waters' voice was even more inflammatory. If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd and you push back on them. Within 48 hours of that speech, Tulsi said, producing police reports, there were 17 documented attacks on government officials and their families. Sarah Sanders was driven from a restaurant. Kirstjen Nielsen was surrounded by a mob. Multiple staffers were assaulted, but the worst was yet to come. Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, Tulsi announced, her voice taking on the edge of a prosecutor presenting murder evidence. You traveled across state lines during the Derek Chauvin trial to incite more violence. She played the most damning recording yet, Waters' voice captured by news cameras. We have got to stay on the street. We have got to get more active. We have got to get more confrontational. We have got to make sure that they know we mean business. You said this while Minneapolis was already burning, Tulsi pointed out, while businesses owned by minorities were being destroyed, while innocent people were hiding in their homes in terror. She produced a DHS intelligence assessment. Within hours of your speech, Minnesota National Guard units were attacked in a drive-by shooting. 2 soldiers injured. These are American service members, Congresswoman, shot because you told rioters to get more confrontational. The evidence mounted relentlessly: police reports, hospital records, autopsy reports. Since your Brooklyn Center speech, there have been over 300 violent incidents directly linked to your rhetoric. 37 Americans dead, over 500 injured, $2 billion in damage. Waters tried to defend herself. I was calling for peaceful protest. The civil rights movement. The civil rights movement was about nonviolence, Tulsi interrupted with moral authority. Dr. King explicitly rejected violence. You have spent 30 years doing the opposite. She produced intelligence assessments showing coordination between Waters' appearances and violent groups. FBI analysis shows that violent extremist groups specifically plan their activities around your speeches. They know you will provide political cover for their violence. But the most devastating evidence was personal testimony. This is a statement from Maria Rodriguez, Tulsi said, reading from a victim impact report. Her husband, Jose, owned a small grocery store in your district. During the 1992 riots, he tried to protect it. He was beaten to death by a mob while Maxine Waters was on TV, calling it a rebellion. She continued reading, My children grew up without a father because Maxine Waters told violent criminals their actions were understandable. She has blood on her hands. More victim statements followed, business owners who lost everything, families destroyed by violence, communities that never recovered. But here is what makes it even worse, Tulsi said, producing financial records. While these communities burned, while your constituents lost their businesses and homes, you were getting rich. Property values crashed in riot zones, and you and your associates bought up the land for pennies on the dollar. The pattern was sickening. Waters incited violence. Communities were destroyed. Then her financial network moved in to profit from the devastation. You are not a civil rights leader, Tulsi declared with devastating finality. You are a poverty pimp who profits from the destruction of the very communities you claim to represent. She pulled out a final document from the violence folder. This is a Joint Task Force recommendation from FBI, DHS, and ATF. It concludes that Maxine Waters represents a clear and present danger to public safety through her continued incitement of violence. Waters was visibly trembling now, her decades of race-card armor pierced by the undeniable evidence of American blood on her hands. Every riot you have incited, every business destroyed, every family torn apart by violence, it all served your political power and financial gain, Tulsi said, closing the second folder. She reached for the third folder, marked with CIA and NSA classifications. Now, let us discuss your connections to foreign intelligence services and how American classified information ended up in the hands of our enemies. The third folder Tulsi opened contained intelligence that transformed political corruption into something approaching treason. The classification markings were from multiple agencies: CIA, NSA, FBI Counterintelligence Division, all pointing to a pattern of foreign influence that spanned continents. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi began, her voice carrying the weight of national security implications. For 30 years, you have been selling out American interests to the highest foreign bidder. Today, we expose your international corruption network. She produced the first document, a CIA intelligence assessment marked top secret. Let us start with Haiti. Between 2010 and 2023, you made 17 trips to Haiti. Officially, these were humanitarian missions. Unofficially, you were meeting with some of the most corrupt oligarchs in the Western Hemisphere. Surveillance photographs appeared on the screen. Waters meeting with known Haitian crime bosses, embracing politicians later indicted for embezzlement, touring properties owned by drug traffickers. After the 2010 earthquake, billions in international aid flowed into Haiti. Tulsi explained, "Most of it disappeared. Our intelligence shows you helped facilitate that theft." She produced financial records from Treasury. Haitian oligarchs needed a way to move stolen aid money into the U.S. banking system. You provided it through a network of nonprofits in your district. The money trail was damning. The Maxine Waters Haiti Foundation received $3.2 million in donations from Haitian businessmen between 2010 and 2015. These same businessmen were later charged with stealing earthquake relief funds. That money was for humanitarian work, Waters protested. "Then explain this," Tulsi responded, producing more documents. IRS records show your foundation spent less than $200,000 on actual Haiti relief. The rest went to administrative costs, including payments to your family, members, and purchase of real estate in Los Angeles. But Haiti was just the beginning. Now, let us discuss China. Tulsi continued producing NSA intercepts. Your district includes major ports that handle Chinese imports. For 20 years, you have been protecting Chinese intelligence operations in exchange for campaign contributions and business opportunities. She displayed a pattern of suspicious financial transfers. Between 2005 and 2023, businesses in your district with direct ties to the Chinese Communist Party contributed over $4.8 million to your campaigns and affiliated PACs. Those are legitimate American businesses, Waters insisted. With Chinese state ownership, Tulsi countered, producing corporate documents. Long Beach Import Corporation, majority owned by a Chinese state enterprise. San Pedro Trading Company, subsidiary of a firm connected to the Chinese military. California Pacific Logistics, identified by FBI as a front for Chinese intelligence. The intelligence assessment was devastating. Every time legislation came up that would restrict Chinese access to American ports or technology, you fought against it. Every time security concerns were raised about Chinese operations in California, you dismissed them as xenophobia. But the most damning evidence involved actual intelligence operations. This is an FBI counterintelligence report from 2019, Tulsi announced. Chinese intelligence recruited several staff members in your congressional office. When the FBI tried to investigate, you accused them of racial profiling and blocked their access. She produced transcripts of intercepted communications. These are emails between your chief of staff and a known Chinese intelligence officer operating under diplomatic cover. They are discussing upcoming legislation affecting Chinese technology companies. The emails were explicit about the quid pro quo. Waters' office would provide advanced notice of congressional actions, and Chinese businesses would continue their financial support. But China is not your only foreign patron. Tulsi continued producing more intelligence assessments. Let us talk about your relationships with African dictators. Photographs appeared showing Waters with various African leaders, all of whom were later indicted for human rights violations or massive corruption. Charles Taylor of Liberia, convicted war criminal. You called him a freedom fighter and opposed his extradition, Tulsi noted. Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, responsible for thousands of deaths. You praised his land reform policies while his opponents were being murdered. Financial records showed the connections. Each of these dictators had business interests in the United States, specifically in your district. They needed political protection. You provided it. I was supporting African sovereignty, Waters claimed, desperately. You were supporting African dictators who paid you, Tulsi responded coldly. Here are wire transfer records showing $2.3 million flowing from African government accounts to businesses controlled by your associates. The pattern was consistent across continents. Waters took money from foreign sources and provided political cover for their operations in America. Now, for the most serious charge, Tulsi said, producing a document marked with the highest classification levels. This is a joint CIA-NSA assessment, concluding that sensitive intelligence from your committee briefings repeatedly ended up in foreign hands. The implications were staggering. You sit on committees dealing with national security, financial intelligence, and law enforcement. Information from those classified briefings has appeared in Chinese, Russian, and Iranian intelligence databases. You are accusing me of espionage, Waters sputtered. I am presenting evidence that classified information you had access to was compromised, Tulsi replied. Whether through incompetence or malice, American secrets ended up helping our enemies. She produced specific examples. June 2020, you received a classified briefing on U.S. sanctions against Chinese banks. Within 72 hours, those banks had moved their assets to avoid the sanctions. Someone warned them. March 2021, classified briefing on DEA operations against Mexican cartels. Within a week, 3 major operations had to be canceled because the targets disappeared. Someone tipped them off. September 2022, intelligence briefing on Iranian nuclear smuggling networks. The networks immediately changed their patterns. Someone leaked the information. Each leak could be traced back to information Waters had access to. The pattern was undeniable. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi concluded, closing the foreign influence folder. You have spent 30 years selling out American interests to foreign criminals, dictators, and intelligence services. You have compromised national security for money. She reached for the 4th folder, marked with DEA and Border Patrol insignias. Now, let us discuss how many American children have suffered because of your protection of gang and cartel operations in your district. The 4th folder contained some of the darkest intelligence in the entire briefing. As Tulsi opened it, revealing DEA surveillance reports, Border Patrol intelligence, and missing person files. The full horror of Waters' criminal protection network became clear. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi began, her voice heavy with the weight of destroyed families. Your district has been a sanctuary not for immigrants seeking better lives, but for gang members, drug dealers, and human traffickers, and you have protected them for 40 years. She produced a map of South Central Los Angeles overlaid with crime statistics. Your district has the highest concentration of gang activity in California. MS-13, Bloods, Crips, all operate freely because you have made your district a no-go zone for federal law enforcement. I protect my community from police brutality, Waters protested. You protect criminals from justice, Tulsi countered, producing DEA intelligence reports. In 2017, DEA had a major operation planned to take down a fentanyl distribution network operating out of your district. You got wind of it and held a press conference denouncing federal stormtroopers invading our community. She played news footage of Waters' press conference where she had rallied residents to resist federal occupation and protect our young men from persecution. Within 24 hours of your press conference, the entire distribution network disappeared, Tulsi continued. The DEA operation failed, and the fentanyl kept flowing. She produced overdose statistics. In the following year, 847 people died from fentanyl overdoses in Los Angeles County. That blood is on your hands. But the protection went deeper than just public statements. This is an FBI organized crime assessment, Tulsi announced. It identifies 17 community organizations in your district that are actually fronts for gang money laundering. You have personally directed millions in federal grants to these organizations. The list was damning. South Central Youth Empowerment, run by a convicted Crips leader. Watts Community Action Network, controlled by MS-13. Angels of Hope Foundation, a front for human trafficking operations. These are community programs helping at-risk youth, Waters insisted. These are gang operations using taxpayer money, Tulsi responded, producing financial records. Here is how it works. Gangs set up a community organization. You direct federal money to them. They use it to fund criminal operations while kicking back contributions to your campaign. The financial trail was clear. Every gang-connected organization that received federal funds through Waters' influence had made substantial contributions to her political machine. But the worst part is the missing children, Tulsi said, her voice cracking with emotion. She produced files that made everyone in the studio go silent. In the past 10 years, over 3,000 children have gone missing from your district. That is 3 times the national average. Many of these children were in the foster care system or immigration processing, centers you oversee. She displayed photographs, dozens of young faces, all missing, all from Waters District. FBI and DHS investigations show that many of these children were trafficked through gang networks operating under your protection. Tulsi continued, when federal agents try to investigate, you accuse them of targeting your community. When they try to rescue these children, you call it harassment. The evidence included intercepted communications between gang leaders discussing their protection, from Waters. One particularly chilling recording featured a gang leader bragging that Auntie Maxine had their back as long as the donations flowed. Let me tell you about Maria Gonzalez, Tulsi said, producing a case file. 14 years old, disappeared from a foster home in your district in 2019. FBI intelligence indicated she was being trafficked by a gang operating out of a community center you had personally dedicated. When agents tried to investigate, you showed up with cameras and accused them of racial profiling. The investigation was shut down. Maria was never found. More cases followed, children who vanished, investigations blocked, gang members protected by political interference. Here is the business model, Tulsi explained with cold fury. Cartels need distribution networks in American cities. Gangs provide that network. You provide political protection. The drugs flow north. The guns flow south. The money flows to you, and the children just disappear. She produced communications between cartel leaders and gang contacts in Waters District. The Sinaloa cartel calls your district La Plaza Segura, the safe plaza. They know federal law enforcement cannot operate effectively there because you will interfere. This is character assassination, Waters shouted desperately. This is documented fact, Tulsi responded, producing a joint task force report. DEA, FBI, ATF, and Border Patrol all agree. Your political interference has made your district a safe haven for the most dangerous criminal organizations in the hemisphere. But the most damning evidence was yet to come. In 2021, a joint task force identified a major human trafficking ring operating through your district. Tulsi revealed they had evidence of dozens of children being moved through safe houses connected to organizations Waters funded. She paused, letting the weight of what she was about to say sink in. You were briefed on this operation in a classified committee meeting. Within 48 hours, the safe houses were empty. The children were gone, moved somewhere else to continue being exploited. Someone leaked that classified information to the traffickers. Someone warned them. And Congresswoman Waters, you were one of only 6 people who knew about that operation. The implication was clear and horrifying. Waters had potentially warned human traffickers about a rescue operation, allowing them to escape with their victims. Every missing child, every overdose death, every family destroyed by gang violence, it all happened under your protection. Tulsi declared, you turned your district into a criminal enterprise where the most vulnerable pay the price for your corruption. She closed the 4th folder and reached for the final one marked with the highest levels of classification from multiple intelligence agencies. Now for the final revelation, she said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Let us discuss what foreign intelligence agencies have in their files about Maxine Waters and why you are listed as an intelligence asset by America enemies. The final folder bore the highest classification markings. As she opened it, the very air in the studio seemed to thicken. This was not just corruption. This was treason at the highest level. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi began, her voice deadly serious. What I am about to reveal comes from the most classified sources in our intelligence community. You are not just corrupt. You are not just a criminal. You are a foreign intelligence asset. Waters' face had gone completely white. Her hands gripped the table so hard her knuckles showed through the skin. Let us start with the Chinese Ministry of State Security, Tulsi said, producing a document covered in classification stamps. In their files, you are listed as Asset Beverly Hills, recruited in 1995, active status, high value placement. She let that sink in. A sitting member of Congress listed as an active asset by Chinese intelligence. The recruitment happened during a congressional delegation to Beijing, Tulsi continued. You were having financial difficulties. Your husband's business was failing. You had massive debts. The Chinese offered a solution, business opportunities for your husband, contributions to your campaign, and all they wanted in return was friendship. This is McCarthy-era red baiting, Waters protested weakly. This is documented intelligence, Tulsi responded, producing intercepted communications. Here are MSS communications discussing your product. That is intelligence terminology for information you provided. She began reading from translated documents. Asset Beverly Hills provided committee discussion details on Taiwan arms sales. Asset Beverly Hills confirmed technology. Transfer restrictions will be delayed. Asset Beverly Hills warns of upcoming sanctions on Chinese banks. Each entry was more damning than the last. Waters had not just taken Chinese money, she had actively provided intelligence that helped China circumvent American policies. But China is not the only foreign service with a file on you, Tulsi continued. Russian FSB lists you as agent useful, idiot, recruited through political ideology rather than money, though they note you have never turned down their financial support. More intelligence assessments followed. Waters' connections to pro-Russian organizations, her parroting of Russians, talking points about NATO expansion. The Iranians have you listed as Friendly Asset 14, Tulsi revealed, reliably supportive of their interests in exchange for donations to Palestinian causes. You champion causes that funnel money back to your political operations. But the most devastating revelation was about American deaths. In 2019, you served on a classified intelligence subcommittee reviewing operations against Iranian proxies in Iraq, Tulsi said, her voice hardening. You had access to operational details about American Special Forces missions. She produced a timeline that made the connection undeniable. June 2019, classified briefing on upcoming operations. June 20th, 2019, unusual pattern of calls from your office to numbers later identified as Iranian intelligence cutouts. June 25th, 2019, American Special Operations raid fails catastrophically. 3 American soldiers killed in an ambush. The Iranians knew we were coming, Tulsi said, her voice cracking. Someone warned them. Someone with access to that classified briefing. She displayed the photographs of 3 young American soldiers, Sergeant Michael Chen, Staff Sergeant James Williams, and Sergeant Maria Rodriguez. They died because someone sold out their mission for Iranian money. You cannot prove I had anything to do with that, Waters shouted desperately. Actually, I can, Tulsi replied coldly. She produced intercepted communications between Iranian intelligence officers, discussing the warning they received, referencing their congressional source and specific info from that briefing. But there was more. This pattern repeated across multiple operations, American operations compromised, American lives lost. CIA estimates that intelligence leaks traceable to your access have resulted in the deaths of at least 47 American service members and intelligence assets over 20 years. Here is how it worked, Tulsi explained. You would receive classified briefings. Your staff, many of whom have suspicious foreign contacts, would take notes. Within days, that information would appear in foreign intelligence channels. She produced intercepts showing the pattern clearly. You did not just betray your oath of office, Tulsi declared. You betrayed every American who ever put on a uniform. You sold their lives for foreign money. But the final revelation was the most shocking of all. 3 months ago, you were briefed on a new counterintelligence operation targeting congressional security breaches. It was a trap. Different information was given to different members to identify leakers. Waters' eyes widened in terror. The information given only to you appeared in Chinese intelligence communications within 72 hours. We have you dead to rights. Congresswoman, you are caught. She produced the final document, a federal arrest warrant. This morning, federal agents raided your offices and homes. They found encrypted communication devices, foreign currency, and documents that corroborate everything I have revealed today. Maxine Waters, Tulsi said, standing with authority. You are a foreign intelligence asset who has betrayed your country for money and power. You have American blood on your hands. Your 40-year reign of corruption ends today. The studio was dead silent. Waters sat motionless, her career, her freedom, and her life destroyed. As Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi concluded, I am formally declassifying all evidence of your foreign intelligence activities. The American people deserve to know their Congress was infiltrated by someone who sold out her country for our enemy silver. The studio of MSNBC had transformed from a news set into ground zero of the biggest political explosion in history. Maxine Waters sat frozen. Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, Tulsi said, addressing the cameras, what you have witnessed today is the systematic exposure of one of the most corrupt politicians in history. But this is bigger than just Maxine Waters. Financial corruption stealing millions. inciting violence that killed Americans, taking money from foreign dictators, protecting human traffickers, selling military secrets resulting in the deaths of 47 service members. Congresswoman Waters, Tulsi continued, I am proving espionage with declassified intelligence that will be provided to federal prosecutors today. Waters finally found her voice. This is a right-wing conspiracy. You are attacking me because I am a strong black woman who— Stop, Tulsi commanded. Your race and gender do not excuse treason. They do not excuse taking blood money. I fought in Iraq. I served alongside heroes of every race. We all took the same oath. The oath you have spent 40 years violating. You want to talk about strong black women? Let us talk about Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, killed in Iraq because you leaked intelligence. Let us talk about the black business owners whose stores were burned in riots you incited. You are not a civil rights icon. You are a criminal who used racial politics as a shield. You have done more damage to the black community than any Klansman ever could. As Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi announced her effective actions: declassification of all evidence, criminal referrals for treason and espionage, search warrants being executed, and the freezing of all assets. Every dollar you stole, every property you bought with blood money, it is all being seized. Your security clearances are revoked. Your committee assignments are terminated. But here is what really matters, Tulsi said, her voice softening. To the families of the 47 service members killed, justice is finally coming. To the business owners, justice is coming. To the parents of missing children, we will not stop until we find them. At that moment, Maxine Waters began to cry, broken sobs of someone whose life had been exposed as a lie. I never meant, she stammered. You never meant to get caught, Tulsi finished coldly. Your tears do not bring back the dead. They are as worthless as your word. Federal agents entered the studio, FBI led by a stern-faced special agent who approached Waters directly. Maxine Waters, you are under arrest for violations of the Espionage Act and federal corruption statutes. As Waters was led away in handcuffs, Tulsi delivered her final statement. To every corrupt politician watching, this is your warning. The age of accountability has arrived. To every American who lost faith in justice, today proves that no one is above the law. And to our enemies, we are coming for all of you. Your time is up. The last image America saw was the complete destruction of a political dynasty, a sobbing criminal being walked out of a studio. Tulsi Gabbard remained standing. This is what accountability looks like. This is justice. The political landscape of America shifted like tectonic plates. The footage crashed social media servers. 34 Democratic officials either resigned or announced they would not run again. In south-central LA, spontaneous celebrations broke out. Business owners gathered to share stories. International intelligence agencies began sharing information they had withheld for years. The legal machinery moved with speed. Federal agents found stacks of foreign currency and $3.2 million in cash bills traced to Chinese banks and cartel money laundering in Waters' mansion. Maxine Waters stood trial in federal court, facing 127 charges. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge delivered a maximum sentence for treason, life in federal prison without parole. As Waters was led away, in shackles, the gallery was filled with her victims. For Tulsi Gabbard, The transformation was equally profound. Overnight, she became the most trusted figure in American politics. She announced a new task force targeting congressional corruption. Within 6 months, 47 additional members were under investigation. The swamp was being pumped dry. Military service surged as young Americans sought to serve with honor. Ethics became the central issue in every election. "Are you a Waters or a Gabbard?" became shorthand for integrity. A year later, Tulsi stood at Arlington National Cemetery before the graves of the fallen heroes. Justice may have been delayed, but justice has been delivered. To those who still serve, know that we will protect you from betrayal. History would remember this as the day American justice was reborn. The day a combat veteran stood up to corruption and won. The day the swamp learned to fear the truth.